Hey, what's up guys, it's Aptrix here. Welcome to the official Pokemon Sword and Shield Android gameplay test on the SUYU Nintendo Switch emulator. Today we'll be playing this game and see how well does it actually work, is it better than the previous emulator or not, and if this video reaches 200 likes we'll be also testing out the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on all notification. With that being said, let's get started. To start off, there is a brand new GPU driver which has just released for Adreno 6 series as well as 7 series GPUs. It is the Mesa Turnip Adreno driver revision 18. Finally, after 3 weeks, the developer has decided to release an update with major changes. For example, Vulcan version has been updated and apparently it has been fixed for Adreno 6 series GPUs. And by the way, for all of you guys with Mali GPU Android devices, I have my Redmi K50i which has just been eating dust. I'll be testing the SUYU emulator on it pretty soon. So be sure to subscribe and let me know which game should I test out on a MediaTek processor Android device. Let's go to advanced settings. In terms of limit speed percentage, it will be disabled. Dock mode also should be disabled. In terms of graphics, accuracy level is normal, resolution is 0.75x, FSR sharpness is 25, disk shader catch, force maximum clocks and asynchronous shaders have been enabled. Graphics API is set to Vulkan, CPU backend is native code execution, CPU accuracy is auto. With that being said, let's just go back and start testing Pokemon Sword on the SUYU Nintendo Switch emulator Android. And I won't be using any kind of save files because we want to see the raw performance from the beginning of the game. If I test it out with a save file, it won't really be fair because the game might start from an area where it is already optimized. By the way, this is my first time trying Pokemon Sword on SUYU emulators. Along with you guys, this will also be my first time seeing how well does this game actually work on our Android devices. And immediately, first of all, I can see that the game has frozen during its cutscene. It's not actually a great start to our today's testing. Anyways, let's just go ahead and reopen our Pokemon Sword game and hopefully this time it should work. I think it might be a problem with the latest graphics driver which is Mesa Turnip driver 18. If there is still an crashing issue during the cutscene, then we can change our graphics driver and it's not necessarily the SUYU emulator's fault. There we go, the game has successfully started. As usual, after you restart your Nintendo Switch emulator, the limit speed percentage option will be enabled by default. Once we disable the limit speed percentage, as you will be able to see at the top left corner, we are getting more than 50 FPS while emulating Pokemon Sword, and at least during this cutscene there are no graphical issues because Pokemon games have been really well optimized on these Nintendo Switch emulators. So if you are trying it out, then you don't really need to worry about anything. I am thinking about testing out Mortal Kombat, Legend of Zelda, FIFA 23, FC 24 and much more, including Pokemon Scarlet and Let's Go Pikachu. If there are any more games which I should test out, then let me know in the comment section down below. And the device which I'll be using for today's video is IQ12 and it's not really necessarily very flagship because most of these emulators are not really optimized for Adreno 750 GPU or Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor. But there we go, the game has successfully started. One thing which I can immediately notice is that even with 0.75x resolution, the game looks pretty crisp, as you might have seen during the cutscene and even during the launch of the game. You might be able to see that the quality is pretty amazing. Let's just go ahead and skip this cutscene and we are getting stable 60 FPS. But what I'm most curious about is the fact that how much FPS will we get once we leave the house. So I guess we don't have to wait for much longer. We can just go ahead and grab our backpack and oh no man, SUYU emulator is not really performing great. There is another freezing issue. Sorry guys, I think it was my fault. I unfortunately imported the Adreno 6 series version of Mesa Turnip Adreno driver. Now I have fixed it. I have imported the latest Mesa Turnip Adreno driver which works on even Adreno 7 series GPUs. So that was very silly mistake from my side. Anyways, I have also imported an save file in Pokemon Sword because I was getting impatient. And there we go, this time our game started properly. So yeah guys, it's not an issue with the SUYU emulator. Nonetheless, at the top left corner you will be able to see that we are getting stable 45.6 FPS, and if we go inside house then we are getting around 50 to 60 FPS, very stable. But one thing which you'll notice is that with 0.65x graphics resolution, at least in outside world scenarios, the textures are not that high resolution. Inside house it seemed that the textures were really cool, but once you exit the house, obviously you will realize the reality of 0.75x resolution, which is not indeed a bad thing. It is actually great. It means that of course the settings of SUYU emulator are working as intended, and you will notice that the FPS which we are getting is not actually that better than the previous build of SUYU Emulator which I tested out. In that previous build I was getting 50 plus FPS very easily even in outside world scenarios, but it had graphical issues, whereas in this build of SUYU Emulator Android we are getting proper graphical output but the FPS is pretty low, and I am really shocked because the device which I am using for today's test has Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, and just imagine how well would it actually perform on a Snapdragon 680 processor. That's the main reason why I always tell you guys that use Skyline Emulator if you want a Nintendo Switch emulator which is oriented for performance and low-end device support. But if you want stability, then of course go with the SUYU emulator. The main thing about this emulator is the fact that it will be continued in future. The development will not stop and it will continuously improve. Probably the Mali GPU support will be pretty stable in future, so that's what I'm looking forward to, because as far as Pokemon Sword emulation is concerned on Yuzu emulator, even if you have a Snapdragon 680 processor or above, this should run properly with at least 15 to 20 FPS. But if you have Mali GPU, even if you have like Dimensity 9000 processor, this game probably may not work. We'll need to still find that out in our Mali GPU testing video. But during the cutscenes actually look really good. I think that's because the cutscenes are pre-rendered in 1080p. But once the game starts, obviously, and during the loading screen there is no more freezing issue unlike previously. It was because of the custom driver, and I'm really sorry for that, because we had to use an save file which I really didn't want to do. But okay, there was an freezing issue. I was like, it might not have been my mistake, it might actually be the emulator, but no, the game did not freeze. So yeah, it proves that you need to use proper versions of custom graphics driver if you want to fix crashing issues, graphical issues, as well as improve performance. So yeah guys, Pokemon Sword works properly in SUYU emulator. There are very minimal flickering issues and not that many graphical issues, so you can definitely try it out on your Android devices. It should work properly without crashing if you use proper versions of graphics driver. Let me know in the comment section down below if you are excited for the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet test on the SUYU emulator. Till then, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for my next videos. Goodbye.